morning guys! Today is such a beautiful day and I thought it was the perfect time to start the next page of my children's book. Hello, if you're new here, my name's Chantal. I am a watercolor artist and illustrator and I'm currently writing and illustrating my own children's book, ADENA'S. After facing a lot of rejection in the industry trying to find work, I thought I would write and illustrate my own story and take you guys along the process. And today we are going to be starting on page 7. So over the past year I have been very inconsistent with illustrating the pages of my children's book, and last episode I came to the conclusion that I have a fear of failure, and the reason why I am not motivated and not consistent with my work is that I don't place it as a priority because I fear that this book, when I put it out in the world, won't amount to the success I dream of. And in order to prolong that so-called failure, I am not consistent with my work and I drag out the process of its release. In order to overcome that failure and that fear of failure, I need to work on my flaws. And my first flaw obviously is consistency, and in order to overcome that, I have created a strategy and I have created a schedule, and also reducing the friction between me starting the next page. I think that's where I really get holed up, so I need to reduce that friction. The other flaw that I have is I want to take my work to new heights. I want to produce the best work I can, and I've recently been so inspired, and I'm looking back on my previous pages and I can see all the flaws with them, and I know you guys can see all the flaws too, because I've only been painting really for 2 or 3 years, and honestly I love my YouTube fan. I love you guys so much, and there is a lot of people on here following my journey that have a lot of experience, are professional writers and published authors and illustrators and artists. You guys really do help by critiquing my work, because sometimes I will think of something and I will see something as a flaw and something I need to work on, and when you guys also point that out to me, it also validates what I'm currently feeling. And the biggest flaw, and something that I need to work on in my illustrations, is value and contrast. And I think the reason is because number one, of the medium, watercolor is very light and low contrast, and also two, I just love whimsy and I just love nostalgia, and I think by introducing high contrast I lose that. One of the biggest reasons why I don't have a lot of contrast in my work from a value study of light to dark is because I don't do a value study before. I think that is my biggest problem. I don't spend enough time sketching and really finalizing the sketch before I dive into painting. Page 7 is very detailed. It's probably one of my most detailed paintings with a lot of different perspective going on. So we are going to sketch at least 10 sketches before we dive into the original painting. If you're an artist that usually dives straight into creating and painting your artwork and does barely any sketching or planning, let this be your sign to start. I had so much enjoyment painting page 7 because I had done extensive sketching. In page 7 we find ourselves in the kitchen and dining area of the house, and in order to specifically display the movement of where Adena was going and what her mum was doing, yelling out to Adena to come down for breakfast, I had to make sure that where they were positioned in the kitchen made sense. I also couldn't have them too close to the right side because that would have been the inner of the page, like where the book spine is. So I had to make sure they were actually on the left side, and so I put a lot of time and thought into where everything would go, where the door would be, the windows, the lighting, the balance, the movement, and of course the contrast, and I think I did really well. I have done 10 sketches, so I achieved my goal of doing 10 sketches before I move on to a final. And then what I did is I took a photo of my final sketch here, and I'm tracing my sketch digitally so I can make sure like everything is in the right perspective. But this step is taking forever. I didn't expect it to take this long. We've been going for like an hour, but yeah, I just wanted to tell you guys where I'm at the moment. We're gonna finish this sketch and I will show you it. So some of you may be wondering how I draw my really big sketch on my watercolor paper, and the thing is, this is a bit controversial, but I use a projector. Now, I think using a projector is a great tool, providing that you already have an understanding in like anatomy or how to draw up references. I think it can really lighten your workload. I'm also sketching my own sketch that I've drawn up by hand, and I'm not crazy to do that on such a large scale. Whoa, guys, the sketch is complete, but I did ask on my private Instagram, ADENA'S World, which you can sign up to if you want for $1. If you want to be part of creating my children's book, and if you want little things in here, join ADENA'S World. And I asked you guys what I should include to make it more homey. You guys gave me some suggestions. Angel said that I should, that's such a beautiful name by the way, that in my measurements, I should also include a measurement of star. Genius. So star is here in the measurement. Also, I just love storytelling because you know what? We have ADENA'S height, but we also have her sister, which you guys never meet, but I think it's nice to like include those aspects. Like, we don't know her name, we don't know anything about her story, seem more real and relatable. Yeah, if you want to include some things in the pages I come up with when I ask, go sign up to ADENA'S World. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it here for today, and probably tomorrow we're gonna start painting, which is super exciting, but bye for now. I want to be successful so bad. I just cut 400 words from my manuscript. So this is chapter 2, which is all about inspiration. If I want to reach new heights, big heights, if I want to be ambitious, I have to be inspired by the masters and by people that kind of know what they're doing. And I was watching Katie May's YouTube channel yesterday, and she's on her own children's book journey, and she recommended some books. I decided that I was going to go and read some of those books, and one of the books I was reading was Writing Irresistible Children's Books by Mary Cole, and she was saying that the average children's book has 600 words. Mine is sitting at around 1,200, and I was like, you know what, I know that I have to cut it back. Do I lose attention span? Which, you know, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think my illustrations could hold the attention span of anyone. But also the breath span of, if you're reading a story in one sitting from start to finish, as you are in a children's book, you need to have the breath to do that. And I was reading my book and I was like, no. So I cut 4 pages out and 400 words, which it's now sitting about 800 words. I think that's pretty good. Is it going to be 600? No, because you know what? There are outliers, and I'm going to be one of them. I'm not going to get down to 600. I think 800 is pretty freaking good. Plus, my work is an outlier, so you know, we gotta have the story for that. Anyway, so okay, I feel like this might be one of the most important things I'm going to say in this video. So listen up. I don't agree with everything that Mary Cole said in her book, because it is a book about how to get a publishing deal, a traditional publishing deal, and publishers don't necessarily choose great stories. They choose stories that are going to sell. And if you are going to sacrifice the greatness of your story for markability, then you're missing out on the potential impact that your story could have on the world, because anybody can learn how to market, but no one can tell your story. Period. So we are 9 minutes into the video, and I have finally started watercolor painting, and I think this just illustrates the importance of planning and reflecting before starting a new piece. I mean, that is half the work. Now I'm on to the easy part, which is watercoloring, which I'm very confident in. I also wanted to take time to expand on the chapter of taking my work to new heights. I think if you're an artist, you go through constant cycles of hating and loving your work. During the recent past, I have felt very confident and comfortable and excited about my art style and the art style that I have cultivated over the past year or so. However, I just came across the work of Kinuku Y Craft, and oh my god, Am I violently humbled? Am I violently inspired to push my work to new heights? And now, if you're familiar with Kanuku Wycraft's work, she is in the Hall of Fame of illustrators. Her work is incredibly detailed. And when I saw her work, I was like, wow, imagine if I could paint like that. And I think that's something that I can be inspired by and aim for, but it's not necessarily something that I have to do. I think there comes a point where we can appreciate our current work and we can appreciate our current style and understand that my work doesn't need to be more for the book I'm currently illustrating. We can still be inspired in order to grow and take our work to new heights. As you guys know, I really wanted to push the depth of this painting and really have a lot of contrast in value. So I started off with the very lightest areas of the painting, which would be, of course, the window and the light falling into the front dining area, and I would contrast that with the darkness of the stairs which lead up to the bedroom. Now in this page, Adena's mum calls her down for breakfast while Adena sneaks out the back door to look for Star. Now because there is a little bit of tension in this piece, the way Adena is anxious about where Star could be and her disobeying her mum and going out to look for Star, I really wanted to encapsulate that feeling in the movement and position of the two characters. They had to be in a position where we could see Adena sneaking out the back door, but also Mum had to be in front, calling her down from her room and not being able to see Adena. So I had to think very carefully about how I would position them in the dining area. This painting also did a lot of world building for the story. There are so many things that I wanted to include in order for this page to have a very realistic and homey and relatable atmosphere. And so we have dirty tea towels lying around, we have beautiful curtains, food on the benches and plants on the tabletops in order to show the reader that this is where Adena grows up in. So we can get a sense of her character and her home life, and also perhaps things that we never find out about her, including her sister. I think all these aspects add to the storytelling and the depth of the world that I am building, and makes it not only an enjoyable read for younger readers, but also people my age and adults alike. Hey guys, it has been a hot minute since I checked in with you. I've only been able to commit like 1 or 2 hours in the last couple days, but today we're painting for 5 hours. I've already painted for maybe an hour or so, so we're gonna make a lot of progress. At this point in the journey, I felt like I was losing my mind. There were so many details in this painting. If you're familiar with my work, you know that my work is very sometimes realistic, not necessarily detailed in aspects or items, but I love to paint nature and portraits. And so this painting was the most outside my comfort zone I have ever created. I was second guessing and questioning myself every step of the way. Should it be this color? Should it be darker? Should the perspective be different? I'm not sure, but sometimes you just have to trust the process. It has been a hot minute since I checked in with you all, but we are making some big progress with page 7 and it's just coming along so beautifully. There are issues with it, but I think I can fix them with editing the piece, and I also think we could possibly finish today, which is super exciting. I really wanted to push this page to a new level, and it's kind of, it is definitely my most illustrative piece rather than like a fine art painting or something that is more of a painting or realistic. But you know what? But we grow and we learn, and without further ado, let's finish page 7. As I continue on with my journey of writing and illustrating my children's book, I've come to embrace all the ups and downs that I have encountered. I never expected to have so much character growth in myself and my skills and the places that this book would take me alone in my own self. I hope I'm making sense here, because I don't know, the more that you take risks, the more that you push yourself outside your comfort zone, the more that you're going to grow, and the more things come up in your path that you have to address. And I never kind of expected that. Each page would teach me a different lesson, that each page would take me on my own personal journey as much as Adena is going on hers. Good afternoon, guys. We have finally finished page 7, and it's time for reflection, where we go over what I think I did really well in and what I think I could improve in. And for me, my goal was to take my work to new heights and add more contrast and depth in my work through lighting and contrast. And honestly, I don't think I achieved it as well as I could in the watercolor painting, but it's also something that I can enhance digitally through editing on Photoshop. And sometimes that's necessary, and sometimes that's just part of the work, and I don't think it makes me less of a painter. I also think what worked really, really well here is the amount of detail and sophistication. This piece is beautifully balanced, and that balance plays out through design elements, including like the balance of color, the balance of space, the balance of movement as we work our way through this painting. And I just love that, because I put a lot of thought into that, especially when I was sketching. The last thing that I really love is the amount of detail in this work. Like, everything has a story, everything has a purpose, including like their heights, the stairway that's painted. We can see the environment that Adena grows up in, and so when we see this environment that Adena's growing up in, it's her home, we can see why she acts certain ways or has a personality the way she has. And I think sometimes we think about those things being in a young adult book or, you know, a novel, but we never take those things sometimes into consideration when we're painting a children's book or a picture book. But I just love doing that. I love to make a character a real person and think about her having many different dimensions, because I think that's what makes a story really special. So really, am I illustrating a children's book? No, I don't know. I don't know anymore. I'm illustrating a picture book, and I think this book can be understood and read by everyone. That's the type of story I'm creating. Besides from ADENA'S room, I've never painted anything architectural before. I've never painted inside a room, inside a house, cupboards, freaking windows, stairways. Perspective? No, I'm usually just painting a landscape or a portrait, which is very different. So constructing this was a task on its own, you know, and I'm proud of myself for doing that. Anyway, I will leave you there. If you guys have any thoughts about this piece or any critique or advice or anything you want to say at all, please leave a comment below, and I will see you all in page 8, which I'm very excited for. A little bit of memory. Love you!